The Justice Department expected to release the affidavit justifying the FBI search of former President Trump's Florida estate. DOJ prosecutors had argued that the needed redactions could render the document meaningless, but the judge disagreed, saying it could still provide meaningful information to the public about this historic search. Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas has the latest.
A federal judge has ordered the Justice Department to release by noon today a redacted version of the affidavit filed in the search of Trump's resort. The blueprint, which reveals what federal prosecutors were looking for and why it was so urgent to take the dramatic and unprecedented step of raiding Mar-a-Lago. As of last night, the Justice Department had no plans to appeal the judge's decision. So today we expect to see the release of the affidavit with some critical information omitted, including the names of witnesses and where the investigation may be heading, with hints of who may be the targets. An investigation so sensitive, President Biden was not briefed on the search.
I didn't have any advance notice. None. Zero. Not one single bit.
The Justice Department had argued that a full release of the affidavit could expose grand jury information, the direction of a highly sensitive national security investigation, and put potential witnesses at risk. Prosecutors told the court a heavily redacted document might be meaningless to the public. But the judge has decided that more information must be released. And there's the possibility that the document still could provide some investigative narrative and additional details on the origins of the probe and the search, including negotiation with President Trump's legal team and perhaps a suggestion about the timing of the raid. Republicans have been demanding answers.
If you're going to use the Espionage Act, and if you're going to pursue this criminal investigation, you have to prove intent.
According to a newly released document from the National Archives this week, President Trump had more than 700 pages of classified documents when he left the White House, including some of the nation's most sensitive secrets, among them so-called special access programs, materials which may relate to national defense and other intelligence.
The fact that this had markings like top secret, sensitive compartmented information, or that applying to special programs is really terrifying from an intel perspective.
The former president had been negotiating with the National Archives and DOJ for months to return these materials and was even subpoenaed for the documents. Sources telling ABC News that in June, an attorney for Trump claimed in a statement to the Justice Department that all such materials had been returned. But when the FBI searched the property on August 8th, more classified secret and top secret documents were recovered, including top secret SCI, which may involve nuclear secrets and intelligence from allies, electronic eavesdropping, and spies.
And Chief Justice correspondent Pierre Thomas joins me live now, along with Chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl for more on that. Pierre, the deadline for the Justice Department to release this affidavit is noon Eastern time. Now, the document's expected to be heavily redacted, but the judge said he thinks it can still provide meaningful info about this search. So what are you looking out for?
So, Diane, I think that what we're going to get, and we expect this any moment now, it could come in the next couple of hours, we expect a document that will be heavily redacted in the sense that all the names of witnesses will be blacked out. Maybe some of the names of the investigators may even be blacked out. There will be little, if any, information provided in terms of where the investigation is headed. But we may get some information about the investigative narrative. What launched the investigation? What prompted them to pursue this particular raid? We may get some narrative on that, as well as additional information just on some of the basics of the search.
Now, John, Donald Trump could have fought this release. He didn't. On the contrary, publicly at least, he called for it to be released. Why is that?
Well, he called for it publicly released. His spokesperson has reiterated those calls for it to be publicly released. But what's interesting, Diane, is his lawyers said absolutely nothing in court. They did not participate in this argument in court. They didn't argue for the release of the documents. They didn't argue against the release of the documents, which raises the real question of whether or not Trump actually wants to see this released, or if this is, you know, a public relations tactic. Releasing this document is potentially dangerous for Trump because if it reveals, you know, some of the details as to why the Justice Department felt it was justified and got the judge to agree it was justified to search Mar-a-Lago, it could be problematic for Trump. You'll see why they felt that he was potentially breaking up to 3 federal laws, those 3 laws listed in the search warrant. Then again, if there are any hints in this document as to who has been cooperating, that is something that Trump is intensely interested in. There is widespread speculation that somebody in Trump's inner circle, perhaps somebody working at Mar-a-Lago, was a source for the Justice Department, was a witness that has spoken to prosecutors on this. That is obviously something that Trump and his people are very eager to find out.
Now, Pierre, there have been several twists and turns in this case. The Attorney General asked the court to release the search warrant due to the extreme public interest. That's unusual. Trump's legal team requested a special master to review the evidence instead of the DOJ. Now this redacted affidavit is set to be released. Do you think the investigators were prepared for this material to be made public, and does it impact how they move forward?
Well, Diane, I can tell you, investigators, at least at the Justice Department, always want less information out there regarding their investigations, just who they are. But in this case, we have an extraordinary circumstance involving a former president of the United States. And I think the Attorney General did acknowledge that when you have a case of that nature and former President Trump was speaking out about it, there was some obligation to respond. And I also think that even with the redactions, they are acknowledging that some additional information can be provided in terms of why this case was set in motion, even if there will be a really intense effort to keep, as Jonathan mentioned, any information about witnesses who might be cooperating. And we know that there are some witnesses cooperating because they said so in a document of the need to protect them. They want to keep those witnesses, protected from the public and any kind of intimidation that could be out there. And also they want to very much keep under wraps where this investigation may be headed and who may be the targets.
So, John, bottom line, how much do you think we're actually going to learn today about why federal authorities felt it was so urgent to search Trump's property and to do it when they did?
Well, that's the big question here. You heard from the prosecutors in the court proceedings saying that this document was going to need to be so heavily redacted that it would be devoid of any useful information. Now we know that they made their recommendations on the redactions. The judge accepted those redactions. So I fear that we're going to know not as much as we would like to know, that we're going to see page after page blacked out. Because again, they want to protect those witnesses, as Pierre has said. You need to do more than simply black out their names to protect their identities, because there may be clues in what was said as to who the witnesses were, who would have had access to the information. So, I expect that we're going to be left wanting much, much more after we read this affidavit.
All right, we'll see in just a few hours. John Carl, Pierre Thomas, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.